back to this episode of your Kingsport Blog Video Update. I'm Jeff Fleming, City Manager for the City of Kingsport, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time today going over the capital improvements program that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen recently acknowledged and will ultimately lead to our spending plan for bonds coming up in September. The capital improvements program, in case you're not familiar, is basically the city's project management plan for the coming year. We typically do 5 years, and we do have a 5-year CIP, but we are also going to reevaluate the entire CIP after this first year, just to make sure that we're on track to make sure that our revenues and our expenditures are balanced. So I'd like to just tell you some of the key messages that we talked about at the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and this is things that they have fed back to me since I've been on the job. So I'm trying to do my job, which is to be the diplomat between the board and the staff in helping them implement the vision for the city. First, they really want to focus, at least for a season, on the fundamentals. They want to talk about streets, safety, and parks. Those are the top 3 priorities that they want to focus on, like I say, for a season. Now, how long is a season? A season could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, but they just want to take a quick check step and make sure that we're taking care of the basic services that the citizens expect. Also, amenities to attract growth and investment. They want to be flexible, they want to be entrepreneurial, and they want to have the opportunity to make sure that if a developer is coming into town and wants to do a project, that we can do what we can on our end to make sure he can be successful here so that we can all be successful as well. Better project management and cost estimates. In other words, measure twice, cut once. That's the old adage that we've heard forever when it comes to any kind of project. Just make sure you have your plans correct, that your estimates are good before you borrow the money and you start building. We've had a couple of situations in the past where the original project kind of grew in scope, not due to any particular person's fault, but typically a group was involved and it grew a little bit, and then we're trying to explain to the public how a project that we thought would cost one thing ended up costing more. So we're trying to make sure that we have that project planning in place to be able to make sure that we have good project management. Improve project management. Once we do borrow the money, we want to hold staff accountable to make sure that we live within the budget that's been set and that we don't have that scope creep that I described earlier, to make sure that we identify what we're going to do and then we do what we said we were going to do in the budget we said we were going to do it within. And also identify any other true costs that go along with it. So if you have a capital cost that has an implication on an operating cost, make sure you identify the operating cost as well. So we're, again, just taking a check step to make sure that we have the true cost of the project involved so that there are no surprises at the end. And then finally, just to basically live within our means. And what I mean by that is we have budgetary projections that fit within the tax rate that we have set, and we've got to make sure that our revenue and our expenditures are projected out over several years and that we can live within that tolerance without anticipating going back for a tax increase in the future. So trying our dead level best to be the best managers of the resources that we're given. So the executive summary, the original capital improvements program, CIP, that was presented back in the spring was about $20.2 million. Since that time, various aldermen, various groups have said, hey, I sure wish we could do this. I sure wish we could do that. That caused the list of projects to grow in value to $21.39 million. The staff recommendation is actually $16.4 million, and that is a 19% reduction on what they saw in the spring, and we believe that by doing this we can still do many of the needed projects that are on our horizon, but we can also position ourselves well financially so that in the future we can have better a cash position to do things like paving streets rather than have to borrow money to pave streets. So we feel like that's what our board said, we feel like that's what our community has said, and so we're trying to be conservative but yet still move the needle in Kingsport. To show you that we are focusing on those fundamentals, parks, streets, and safety, you look at the pie chart, well over half of the proposed spending goes to those 3 topical areas. Development is your next highest at 10%, followed by facilities at 9%, education at 8%, sanitation at 6%, and then finally equipment. In the parks area, what we're looking to do is finish the ball fields that were promised over at the General Shell site. We call those the Centennial Baseball Softball fields. They are related to the replacement of the Eastman fields, but there is one extra field that's included. We call this this is an expense that we've been expecting for some time, actually, and the total project was like $6.8 million. This $4 million falls within that $6.8 million. It's the total amount. There's no surprises, no changes. It's just borrowing the money to finish what we said we were going to do. Borden Park improvements. We've been working with the neighborhood on Borden Park and the safety and just the critical nature to that neighborhood. So we have budgeted $500,000 to go toward park improvements. Those would be minor park improvements, but it would also buy a master plan that would identify ultimately what we want to do with Borden Park as an entire park that has bearing on the entire community, not just the immediate neighborhood. So we would start a master planning process to make sure that we have that measure twice, cut once. Develop what you're going to say you're going to do, develop the cost estimate, and then implement it later. So the $500,000 will get us the plan and some minor improvements to Borden Park. Streets, $1.2 million to do Sullivan Street from Clinchfield almost to Church Circle, but not including Church Circle at this time. If there's any way that we can redirect some funds toward including Church Circle, we will do that. But at this point in time, we're committing 1.2 to fix Sullivan Street. As we all know, that's a very narrow street. It will be widened slightly, and it will facilitate development adjacent to it. Paving local streets, $1 million. This is on top of the $750,000 that we did in cash. Historically, in the past, it's been somewhere from $100,000, $200,000, or whatever we had left over that we could put towards paving is what we did. We've gotten a little more aggressive as time has gone on, and what we really want to get to is a 20-year replacement plan for all local streets. Ryan McReynolds, who's our Assistant City Manager for Operations, presented that to the board back in the spring. That would cost $3.25 million to fund the first phase of that. We're proposing $1.75 million, which will get us a long way and still be the most aggressive paving program that any of us have known in our lifetime. That is also on top of the state projects and the MPO projects. Shortly after the beginning of September, you're going to see Lincoln Street go under paving. You're going to see work on Wilcox Drive. You've already seen Center Street and Lynn Garden Drive and Stone Drive. So we are making great strides in paving in Kingsport, and we continue to be committed. Main Street, $500,000 to deal with the street from basically from Sleepy Owl Brewery and Vito's Pizza down to Arkham, which is at the Academic Village, where it turns into Clinchfield Street. So about 4 blocks of Main Street would be repaved and restored, which would also help our downtown area to continue to redevelop. $180,000 for sidewalk improvements. Typically that's 50-50 split between new sidewalks and replacement sidewalks. And then $100,000 to fix a long-standing sight distance issue at the intersection of Chadwick and Tranbarger, which is just off Lynn Garden Drive. Safety, an 800 megahertz radio system. We'll be replacing the $2 million that we need for the new radio system. This is a very long-term project that will ensure that we have the proper technology to be able to communicate in emergency situations. It is not something that we do very frequently, but when it's needed, it's definitely needed, and so we're doing that now. Fire ladder truck and also the fire training ground. The ladder truck is another item that you don't buy but once every probably 20-25 years. But we do need one now, and so we are finally moving that through to take care of that. The fire training ground is the facility just off Wilcox Drive in partnership with Eastman. What's moving that forward is that it is a partnership with Eastman, and it's timely, and it'll make sure that we have the proper training to deal with any kind of situation that may arise in the Kingsport area. In the development phase, River Bend land acquisition, there's been some traffic in the newspaper lately about plans to develop River Bend behind Walmart on Fort Henry Drive. The front part would be retail, the back part would be residential, and then there's the actual riverfront, which the developer is proposing for us to buy a portion, and he would donate a portion, and that's identified at $1.2 million. So if for any reason that the development doesn't go forward, That $1.2 million would go back into general parks citywide. But we do know that we need parkland on the east side, and this is an opportunity that doesn't come around every day. So we're trying to take advantage of that opportunity. Again, with the fallback position that if for some reason it doesn't happen, then that money would go into other parks, which we know need improving. Model City Coalition is targeted in the downtown area for economic opportunity. That would be public realm improvements to support private development in the downtown area, and that's $500,000 identified there. In facility, there's a laundry list of various facilities that need attention, but we do provide funding to take care of those. We need to stay on top of facilities management because, as we all know, if you don't, a very small problem can compound and become a really big problem down the road. So we don't want that to happen. We do have funding to take care of the engineering building, to deal with dam repair at Bays Mountain, improvements at Civic Auditorium in Allendale, City Hall, and then the Justice Center, and then also dealing with some of the fuel equipment down at our Fleet Maintenance Department on Industry Drive. In education, we have $1.15 million for school improvements, most of which are system-wide. There are central power backup, there's cooling tower, HVAC, roof replacement, and property acquisition for the school system. And then there's also individual school needs, such as some classroom space, carpet storage, elevator, athletics, those kinds of things. So that $1.15 million will be determined by the schools how they decide to spend that, but they provided us with their capital list, and that's what we felt like we could help with this year. $190,000 is for the Joint Facilities Program. That is an ongoing planning process between the city and county schools, and the outcome of that, I'm sure, will generate additional facilities requests, but at this time, again, need to do the plan first. So measure twice, cut once. Do the plan first, and then we'll come back and talk about facilities in future years. $1 million for landfill cell construction. Again, that's not an expense that comes around every day, but when it does, you really don't have any option but to do it. So that's $1 million in sanitation. And then finally, $520,000 in various equipment that's needed, mainly to support annexation. It's police cruisers, traffic equipment, public works equipment, and so forth. And then finally, just to show you the pie chart, to remind you that the board told us to focus on fundamentals with parks, streets, and safety first. And you can see from those three pieces of the pie that those are the three areas that we are spending the most money this year. So that is our capital improvements program that will take us through this time next year. And we look forward to continuing to serve the citizens of Kingsport with the best possible services.